Welcome to our China Stories, a series which explores Chinese culture through the eyes of 5 China experts. They have dedicated their lives to the learning of Chinese history and culture.
There's so much in Chinese history that ordinary people in the West can be interested in and fascinated by, make comparisons and so on.
And have formed a connection with the country through their different disciplines.
I wanted to go and make a series of films that revealed the real soul of China.
In a world where cultural barriers and limited knowledge of China continue to exist.
We'll have huge opportunities, I think, to do cultural exchanges between China and the UK.
They seek to improve the understanding between China and the West.
You realise actually there are many more similarities than there are differences. The problem is it's always the differences that get accentuated.
So I hope that those young people are the new generation of translators.
Join me for the next 5 episodes on our China Stories. In this first episode, I visited Frances Wood, a historian and sinologist who is one of the few British students to have lived in China in the early 1970s. Frances has long contributed to the understanding of Chinese history and culture and has written numerous history books on China, as well as helped restore the Tang Dynasty Dunhuang scriptures at the British Museum.
It was quite extraordinary to go in 71 and 75 and find China was a very different place, very simple, plain, everyone wearing the same things and everyone supposedly sort of working in the same direction.
In 1971, Frances was selected to go on a tour to China, organised by the Society for Anglo-Chinese Understanding.
You had to think, I have to take sellotape, I have to take this, I have to take that. You couldn't get anything in China. I mean, there was nothing there really. And my mother used to send me parcels of coffee and cheese because you couldn't get those things. I mean, it was completely extraordinary to go back to China in, say, the late 70s and see the cranes everywhere, the building. I mean, there was a total physical transformation. I think the speed is absolutely unparalleled. I don't know, I'm sure that no other civilization in history has managed to turn things round and change the physical appearance of a country in such a short time.
She later returned in 1975 to study Chinese for a year at Peking University in Beijing.
So we were in a class with Chinese students and we were supposed to learn what it was like to be a worker, what it was like to be a peasant. We spent more time actually really in the fields and living and staying in peasant houses, and that was well, to us it was fun, of course. One of the things I quite like about China is that people are very frank. They immediately tell you what they think. And, you know, you'd say something, I think I was about 27, I was quite an elderly student to go then. And they just kept saying, you know, are you married? You're so old, you know, you must. They're always very sort of straightforwardly critical if you don't do things exactly as they see that they should be done.
Frances worked as a curator of the Chinese collections at the British Library until her retirement in 2013. She collaborated closely with Chinese scholars in the restoration of the Dunhuang scriptures.
When I first got to the library, they were called the Dunhuang debris, like rubbish almost, and they were in great big blue boxes. There are 25,000 manuscripts from Dunhuang brought back in the beginning of the 20th century by Oral Stein, who had been to Dunhuang, paid a little bit of money, not nearly enough, but to bring back manuscripts to the UK from this wonderful Silk Road site. We began I suppose it was about 10, 15 years, a big programme of making them accessible. It was like uncovering, I mean, it's not like sort of excavating a site, you know, and bringing this stuff to light. I'm proud of the work that, and particularly the conservators did.
Frances has published many history books on varying topics such as treaty ports, the First Emperor, and Cultural Revolution student life. And in 2010, she published a history of the world's earliest dated printed book, the Diamond Sutra.
There's so much in Chinese history that ordinary people in the West can be interested in and fascinated by, make comparisons and so on. So I've always tried to write at a sort of a popular level about Chinese history. I suppose I am at the moment quite interested in the 20th century, actually, which leads into the 21st century, of course. China's sort of struggle, you know, from 1911 onwards to build a modern state after 2,000 years of imperial rule, you know, virtually unchanging. And then suddenly they're in the 20th century and they want to have all the things that the 20th century had. They want to join the Olympic Games, they want to join the Postal Union, they want to do this, that and the other. I think people don't realise that they should have enormous sympathy for China, particularly during the First World War and onwards. It was a time when China was really struggling to join the West and to help and to be part of the modern world, and was constantly pushed back because the Westerners were still really mainly interested in cutting up China and taking out of it what they wanted. I have enormous admiration for politicians in sort of early 20th century China who were struggling to find their way, to fight their way out of the sort of coils of the past. I mean, I think that the West makes a great deal about how, the Chinese keep moaning on about the Opium Wars. And I think it would be good for the West to understand a bit better why the Chinese have, with perfectly good reason in my view, a big complaint about the Opium Wars.
She hopes that the younger generation will continue to promote an accurate picture of Chinese history and culture through access to numerous cultural and linguistic resources.
I think that the younger generation has had far better opportunity than we had, really, to get really good at the language. I think there's huge hope for the younger generation who've had this greater access, and greater access to different parts of China as well. When we were there, you had to kind of apply to go even to Tianjin for the weekend. So what I would like to see more of is really kind of long, concentrated series on China, showing us what China is really like. There was a filmmaker called Phil Aglen, and he made an amazing series, and it was about Lijiang, Yunnan, and it was fascinating. It really showed you what life in China was like. If we could have more of these series like that, a sort of soap opera, but with real people, that was just fantastic.